happen if group of people sit around the table, and let's say if I will tell one person one thing, and he whispered to another fellow another thing, and etc., etc. 5-10 people pass through. When it comes back, it's very different. We see several examples of that, but the difference here, it's much serious because it applied to a serious practical halachot. The first halacha, which come out of this discussion, it's the difference between 3 days and the 7 days of the Shiva. As you know, there are level of gradation. We start with 3 days in the morning period, then we go for 7 days, 30 days, etc., 11 months. So the question is, which unfortunately happen when there are several, let's say several brothers, and one of them live, for example, in a different state, while, let's say, 3 brothers, 2 of them start observing Shiva and heard the news. The third one, for all kind of reasons, heard that later. Now he joined his brothers sitting Shiva. Should he count the Shiva from the day that he joined them, or he joined them, and the moment he joined them, he is part of them all the way to the end, the same measure of time? Tanu Rabbanan, we are on page 21b, 5 lines from the bottom of the page. Avel, meaning a mourner, one of the mourn over one of the 7 immediate family, and he heard the bad news later. Shlosha yamim harishonim, the first 3 days period, ba mimakom karov, meaning if while they bury their, for example, father or mother, he was in the proximity, in the close distance, in that sense is a day distance. But here we meant to say if he had the possibility, if he know about it, he joined them, moneh imahem, is part of the others. Versus ba mimakom rachok, if he live more than 1 day distance, 1 day travel distance, moneh le'atzmo. So trace a scenario. Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, 3 brothers. The father, Jacob, passed away, for example, in Washington, D.C. One brother live in D.C., Reuven. Shimon live in Tacoma Park, close to D.C. Levi live in Delaware. So we said if Levi inform about it in a distance that it's more than 1 day, so now we said if it's less, so if it's less, he can join them. But if it's more than 3 days and he's a far distance, ba mimakom rachok moneh le'atzmo, he has a separate account of the Shiva. Mikan vailach, if he attend that morning house, that place of sitting Shiva, further after the 3rd day, afilu ba mimakom karov, even he live like a few blocks from that location, moneh le'atzmo. So, meaning according to the first view, you need to have several conditions before you count as part of the team. Number 1, that he was in the close distance, in a proximity of the burial spot. That's the first condition. The second condition is that he joined other mourners during the first 3 days period after passing, that's the essence of the mourning period. Now, there are Rishonim, there are rabbis that add to that several conditions. Number one, he doesn't know which Shiva house they're going to use. Meaning, he heard about it already the second day, but he doesn't know where exactly they're sitting, etc. So now you cannot shorten his mourning period just because now in form of the location. That's the Rosh in Lamed Chet. There are others who say that if he joined them within the period of the 3 days, he can do it, meaning he can join them the same way. Other avenue is if the other mourners sitting Shiva in the same location that the deceased leave, and now it's a big question, how about that fellow? So if the Rishonim said if you miss one of those conditions, such as far distance, past the time, so he is not part of them, enenu nigrar, he's not part of them, and he counted his time from the day that he arrived. That's first view. רבי שמעון אומר, אפילו בא ביום השביעי ממקום קרוב, מונה עמהם. Even he leaves, let's go to the extreme, he leaves 1 block from that place. And for all kind of reasons, such as health reasons, other reasons, he joined them the 7th day. He said, the moment he joined them, the only condition Rabbi Shimon required is living close to the place of burial. He does not need to come at the first 3 days. It's enough that he is there even short time before the completion of the 7 days period. Meaning before the time that they all stand up and take the word of comfort, the last one before they complete the Shiva period. Tosfot tells us from Halachot Gdolot that it has to be 10 parsaot. That's the measurement of that time. There is an excellent book called Peirot Te'ena, and he has a long writing over that. Amar Mar, 3 ימים הראשונים בא ממקום קרוב. The first 3 days, if one of the mourners attend while he is living in the close distance, in the proximity of that location, monei mahem, he is counting with the other mourners. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, vehu, that condition is when sheyesh gdol habayit babayit. The condition is that you have to have the oldest there. It's a few avenues. What do you mean by saying oldest? Rashi said that oldest in age of the brothers. The Ritva said that it has to be in the years, because sometimes it's all kind of situations. But the Rosh in Lamed Tet said that it's not necessarily oldest in the years, in age, but can be someone who's in charge. So for example, if you have 3 brothers, but the youngest one, he's taking all the accounts, all the bills, take all the health needs, he does all the management, all the administration, according to the Rosh, Lamed Tet, he said that he is the one who count, he's considering Gdol HaBayit. The Ritva have a discussion also if it's the daughter, etc. So the school of thought that she's. The key is one who's in charge by this school of thought. Ibaya lehu. There is a quandary. 22. הלך גדול הבית לבית הקברות, מהו? If you have the head of the house, the principal member of the family, he went to a different city to bury the dead, and he was several days over there, and then he returned, while the other mourners were in the house, which means you're waiting for that fellow, right? So usually how you count the time of mourning, the mourning period, you start upon the completion of burial. We said it several times. That's called stimat hagolal. People misconstrue it. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avot emphasize on that. You do not give a word of comfort by halacha earlier than that. Some people think the moment is passing, you give a comfort. No, you shouldn't do that. You should wait until we buried, and when you buried and you complete the burial, you shovel, you do all the needs, and you reach the surface level, you make the tzura, and is the stimata golal, you complete zibula batraita, the second set of covering, meaning in this country you need to have a cement, etc. But the way, even here it should be done, it's you put the coffin all the way down, and then you cover it with dirt, then you put the cement, then you cover again until you reach the surface level. You make it in the way that the body size, which means you always have to be careful that the head is in the proper way. And then when you reach that point, then they say the prayer Kaddish, they formulate 2 lines, and now you give the word of comfort, not earlier than that. That's according to halacha. So what happened is, if sometimes the family purchase a plot in a different city, and you need to travel to that city, so those mourners that not join him to go there start the Shiva period right after they finish the completion of burial, which means since other mourners start counting the Shiva from the moment they pull out the dead body from the city, and the Gdol Habayit, the one, the important or the oldest of the family, left later because he is waiting for the burial, which take place sometimes in faraway different states, and it can be a day or several days afterward. So therefore they already start observing Shiva. He is joining them later. Mao. So the question is, how do you count for him? Does he join them and he is part of them even he is late? Or since he returned later, he should have a different set of counting the Shiva? So the Gemara reconciled it and said, Tashma d'amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba amar Rabbi Yochanan, אפילו הלך גדול הבית לבית הקברות מונעים מהם. So even he left to the cemetery, usually the head of the house will not follow the others, right? He's the principal. But here, since he went not for other purposes, but for the purpose of burial, so therefore, it's like he starts the observant of the Shiva with the others. Scenario, for us to fully understand. Let's say we have 4 members of the family. We have, let's call one sister named Adasa, and you have Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. They all live, for our understanding, in DC. Yet they bought, years back, a plot in Boston. They are old in age. They cannot travel, they hardly hear, etc. Okay? Now, they went to the chapel, whatever it is, for the service, and now the principal person in the house, for example, Shimon, who's not the oldest, but he's the one who's capable, who's involved, who's in charge, he's traveled with the coffin to Boston. And they arrange over there a minyan or something to do the burial. The other mourners, they don't know what's going on much, they start observing Shiva. They knew that the burial is that day, they figure out it's that day, they're observing Shiva. 2 days later, Shimon returned. they are now already sitting 2 days, right? So here the Gemara reconciled that he joined them with count the Shiva, even is late, and the reason for that it's because he was occupied with the burial needs, all the necessity of burial. So even physically wasn't there, right? Because, for example, he slept over there and he wasn't feeling well, and then until he get a chauffeur or someone to take him back from Boston to DC, right? So what happened, he observed Shiva with them since he was occupied with all the necessity, with all the needs of the burial. That's the way all the poskim, the Shach, the Ramban, the Ritva, etc. So the Gemara asks a question, why are you saying that? Monei Mahen? You tell me that he is part of all the others? Ve'atanya monei le'atzmo, we just learned that if it's a far distance, and he should have a separate days, the way that he count the Shiva. So they said, lo kashya, it's not the question. You know why? Ha de'ata begot lata, veha de lo ata begot lata. The first case speaks about Shimon return within the framework of 3 days. The second one is after 3 days. So the person passed away in Washington D.C. on Shabbat. They make all the arrangement on Sunday. They left with the shofar on Sunday in the afternoon. They reached Boston before the sun set, somehow. Okay? But the burial took place for all kind of reasons on Monday. The other mourners already start sitting Shiva in DC. Okay?
Immediately on Sunday?
Immediately on Monday. The moments that they hear
when they hear.
When they hear. Now what happened is, Shimon is in Boston, he returned on Thursday. So how you count? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So one view said, as long as he returned within the 3 days period, if he returned on Wednesday or Tuesday, he joined them. If he returned on Friday or Thursday, then you have to have a separate count of days. If he passed 3 days, that's you have to observe a separate count. I always said each case is different. A person asks a prominent posek, a prominent rabbi who's familiar with that, with this type of questions. Ki ha de'amar lu rav livnei hatz leponi. That's a name of place, or there are those who said it's the name of a family. The atu begot lata, that they return within the 3 days period. Limnu bahadaichu, you should count the 7 days, the Shiva, with the Al. The lo atu begot lata limnu nafshayu, if you did not return within the framework of 3 days, you should have a separate count of the days. Okay, the next point is, when exactly you start the mourning period. Hamalu Rava livnei mechoza. Vnei mechoza, this is a location in Babylon. They used to take the deceased to Eretz Israel. Atun de lo azlitu batar arsa. Those who not escort the dead body to Eretz Israel, meaning you live in a city of Mechoza in Babylon, so you escort the deceased up to the gate of the city, and then you return to your place. So, therefore, mechi mehadritu apaychu mibei de'abula atchil menu. So, when you reach the outer part of the city, you start counting Shiva. So, as we said, practical halachot, which is not, we're not there yet, but we should know the application of observing the Shiva start when? Upon completion of the burial. Right. Now, most of the Rishonim said that when you complete the burial and put the full dirt on the top, that's the Shin Ayin Hey 375 in the code. According to Rashi, it's complete, put the dirt. That's the time. But again, the key is the moment they turn around from escorting the deceased, that's the one avenue. So again, trace a situation, especially in those days. There wasn't telephone, it wasn't communication. So let's say you have several mourners. So one escort the deceased up to the gate of the city, others travel long distance to bury him in Eretz Israel. So here you have a different way of counting. רבי שמעון אומר, אפילו בא ביום השביעי ממקום קרוב מונה עמהם. You remember his view? He said even one of the mourners attend the Shiva house at the last day and even he live in the close proximity to that location. So he observed with them, he count with them the same way. So the Gemara now limited that ruling. אמר רבי חייא בר גמדא, אמר רבי יוסי בן שאול, אמר רבי, והוא, this leniency that he can join with the family just for a short time, שבא, that guest, that fellow came at the 7th day, ומצא מנחמים אצלו. Still he finds some people who are there to give comfort. So therefore he can join them. But if it's already all the people who comfort the mourners left, he needs to count in a separate way. Why? Because as we said, the act of completion of the Shiva is when the people who give comfort left. So it means the guest came after the complete counting. Ba'ei Ravanan. Ravanan asked a question. If the guest the 7 days came and he nin aru, he noticed that people are standing and about to leave. So la'amod velo amdu, mao, meaning they are not totally left yet. So here they want to clarify the law when it's come to the 7 days itself. How exactly you count the very end? When exactly the real completion of the 7 days period? And the Gemara left it teiku. So you should know that whenever it's teiku, it's unresolved. But here, since it's the law of mourning, and we said that with the law, when it's come to mourners, we always go lenient. So therefore, since it's rabbinic, we go leniency. So if he is there when they are about to depart, meaning all the people who give the comfort about to leave, he is already part of them. That's the code in 375 in Shinainei said that the Gra, the Vilna Gaon said that's the way we rules. Gmirei chavrei. So the Rabbi Abba. So now the question left: how do you count? Do you count the same as Rabbi Shimon or not? So Gmirei chavrei de Rabbi Amma mi Rabbi Chia me Rabbi Abba umanu Rab Zera ve'amre la chavrei de Rab Zera mi Rabbi Zera manu umanu Rabbi Abba bre de Rabbi Chia bar Abba amar Rabbi Yochanan l'chak Rabban Shimon Gamliel betrefot v'chak Rabbi Shimon be'evel. So we said that halacha, according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, regard to animals who are unsuitable for human consumptions because of severe organic disease. And when it's come to a law of mourning, we go by Rabbi Shimon. So the Gemara clarified. They said, Rabbi Shimon be'evel ade amaran. So that even a person attend at the 7th day, we count him as part of them. Rabban Shimon Gamliel betrefo de Tanya. We learn in Tosefta, Tractate Chulin, page 3. Bnei me'aim shenikvu velechas tomtan. If you have an animal intestine become perforated, but the hole was stopped by the mucus, so nothing comes out of the hole. So they said ksheira, the animal is fit. So you don't treat it as a regular hole in the intestines. This hole does not render the animal treifa, not kosher, and make it unfit for consumption. Divrei Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Mai leicha. How do you categorize mucus? אמר רב כהנא שירקא דמאיה דנפיק אגב דוחקא. That secretion of the intestines that come under the pressure, which means that you need to use a knife in order to pull it out. So they said, Amar Mandehu, one of the students said, they don't mention the name, not always they remember, Izke ve'asik ve'egmer alishmatem ipur demare. He says, one day I'll make aliyah. I'll go before the original one who said the statement, and I'm going to clarify what's the halacha. Ki sleik אשכחי לרבי אבא ברי דרבי חייא בר אבא ואמר לי, אמר מה הלכה כרבן שמעון בן גמליאל בטרפות? Did you say that we follow רבן שמעון בן גמליאל when it's come to טרפות? אמר לי, ענה אין הלכה המרי. Hey, you just hear the opposite way. So in my book, ביוריה כלומר ברש"י על הש"ס, try to explain this Rashi. Rashi said here, כלומר אין הלכה כרבי שמעון. So Rashi wants to emphasize here that it's the other way around. As we remember, we said at the beginning, you go around the room and you tell something to someone and it's come back very different. Here it's such a misconstruing statement that it's go the opposite way. So you know what does that mean? That you can rule sometimes total the opposite the way it should be, just because it's a misquote of someone. Those who live in my type of job, they know how much many times you suffer from people who misquoted you. Mm-hmm. Go to people at the Kiddush and Shabbos and ask them what did the rabbi said today, and you hear so many different sermons. Anyway, Rabbi Shimon be'evel mai. How do you go by Rabbi Shimon when it's come to More? Amar lei plug taninu. Again, not exactly the way they said. It's a disputation. The itmar. This is the way they have a discussion. Rav Chizda amar halacha, v'chen amar Rabbi Yochanan halacha. Rav Nachman amar ein halacha. So you see here what? It's different. It's disputation. It's not clear cut. ואין הלכה כרבן שמעון גמליאל בטרפות והלכה כרבי שמעון באבל, דאמר שמואל הלכה כרבי מקל באבל. That's it we said earlier, that even you have one singular yachid against many, against Rabbim, when it's come to a law of mourning, we are lenient. Now we go to the new avenue, which is all the stringencies that the rabbis had when it comes to burial and mourning for parents versus others. We explained many times, we have 7 immediate family that we have to mourn over there, but we differentiate between father, mother versus the other 5, brother, sister, son, daughter, and a spouse. So they said, Al kol hametim kulam, meaning all the other 5, madchem mitato, he should do quickly, he should take the bed and he do it in a quick way. Arei ze meshubach, it's a praiseworthy, one who does that quickly. So the honor is not to go on and on with the eulogy. The honor of them is to bury them as quick as you can. Other avenue is he accepting God's inscrutable will with love. That's Rabbeinu Yonatan. Versus Alavi v'alimo. When it's come to parents, harei ze megune, it's condemnable, which means it's inappropriate. Why? Because a person needs to mourn over passing of father or mother more than usual. So therefore, you allow sometimes to delay in order to honor them properly. So the Ritva explains, based on what we study in Tractate Sanhedrin 47, that it's not in violation of Bal Talin. You should not delay it. The Gemara in Sanhedrin starts on page 46. There is a Mishnah. The Mishnah said, "Velo zo bilvad, ela כל המלין, anyone who delay, meito, עובר בלא תעשה. The one who's delayed for no reason, he is in violation of negative commandment. Why? Because the Torah said, כי קבור תקברנו ביום ההוא, you should bury the deceased on that very day. So here we have to differentiate between something that is לצורך המת, for the honor of the deceased, such as even התאספות אנשים, assemble in gathering of people. So that's, you're not in violation of lo talim, you should not delay. Now, versus private matters, that's in violation. So we have to examine each case. Why, for example, nowadays, sometimes you hear that they're freezing the body, etc., and they're waiting, etc. In general, it's a strong violation. We should bury as soon as we can. Yet, there are circumstances that we delay, and it's not considering something that we should condemn. So, for example, here they show us, when it's parents, we treat it differently than others. היה ערב שבת או ערב יום טוב. If it was Friday, before Shabbat, before the festival, there are those who said, או שהיו גשמים מזלפין על מיטתו, or like last night, all of a sudden a pouring rain, unusual pouring rain, that it's dripping on the coffin. So therefore, he's in a rush for burial. הרי זה משובח, it's a praiseworthy to do it. שאינו עושה אלא לכבוד אביו ואמו. He does that in honor of his parents. For example, he doesn't want to delay the burial after Shabbat or after festival, because that's basically caused the deceased to be hanging around without proper burial. The Bach tells us, או שהיו גשמים מזלפים על מיטתו, הרי זה משובח, which means that it's even praiseworthy. It's not only not bizayon, it's praiseworthy, it's shevach. It's good to do it quickly. So, and the Rosh in Siman Mem Aleph in 41 said that we always have to examine each case. One is a praiseworthy and one is there something that deserves condemnation. So, for example, if you have a friend that is a very VIP, right, and is coming out of California, and it's a very well-known, respected actor, right? Okay. You should not delay the burial for that person, even he's the president of the country, right? So the question is, every time Rosh said you have to examine, Al kol hametim kulam, all the other five, excluding parents, Ratza mema'ed be'isko. So here we talk about dealing with, one avenue is the eulogies. But here, the Nachlat Yaakov and others said, it's a merchant, esek merchant, that involved with some type of business. So all the other five, you treat it different than the parents. Ratza eino, but if he wishes do not do so, he need not to reduce it. 22b, meaning business. Alaviv alimo memaed. So meaning for parents, he reduce his business. So as you remember, we studied davar aved. We have to differentiate between something that it's a huge monetary loss versus something that he can postpone after that time. Al kol krovav, al kol hametim kulam, all the other mourners, meaning excluding father or mother, all the other five, ratza choletz, ratza eino choletz. So this is something that was in those days. They used to remove the garment from one shoulder. Not lehavdil elf alfei avdalot, but it's like you go to China, you go to those countries, you see the monk. They have a revealed shoulder, right? Lehavdil, right? So in those years, that was act of mourning. They remove the cover of the shoulder. Not in nowadays. Alaviv alimo choletz, which means that he tear his garment until you see the shoulder open. For sure, there is a different avenue. Some said that it's applied to a real top part of the garment. Some said that it just take part of the top, and the others said that it's the taking off the shoes, that the mourner walk barefoot to the cemetery. But that's not part of the mourning period that starts, as we said, only upon completion of the burial, but it's only act of show respect to the deceased. That's the Bach in Yoreh Ashin Mem. So they said there are those who say that it's applied to both sides of his shoulders, and for sure it applies only to Zachar, only to male, not to female. But the Ritva said it's one side. You should know that in the Yemenite Jews, to this very day, they do some of them such a thing. Like remember we said about covering face, about revealing shoulders. They do that. We don't do that. Soon you see why. Umaaseh begdol ador echad shemet aviv. One of the head of generation that his father passed. Ubikesh lachlotz, and he intend to reveal his shoulder. וביקש גדול הדור אחר שהיה עמו, שעמו לחלוץ, ונמנע ולא חלץ. So the Ritva explained the key is that the people, meaning we, most of the Jewish people throughout generation, live among the non-Jews. And the concern is, the reality is, that when you're sitting in a Shiva house, the neighbors and others come and give word of comforts, right? So they look and they see that it's a very weird, and they start thinking in all kind of a wrong way. So the Roedea in Shin Mem in 340 said that especially the head of the generation should not be mocked, should not be mevuzeh. Amar Abaye Gdol Ador Rebbe. That was the head of generation, was the Rebbe who was the author, or the one who put together, the editor of the Mishnah. Gdol Ador She'imo Rabbi Yaakov Ba'acha. That's the name of the sage that was with him. There are those who say the other way around. V'ikadamri Gdol Ador Rabbi Yaakov Ba'acha, Gdol Ador She'imo Rabbi. Bishlama למד אמר גדול הדור שימו רבי, היינו דנמנע ולא חלץ. אלא למאן דאמר רבי יעקב ברכה, מה נמנע ולא חלץ? So he said, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel נשיא הרב וכולם מאן דחייב ומחלץ קשיא. So here a few things. The Rosh said at the beginning of Seif Membet 42, he said that during the Shiva period, there are those mourners that can do some type of work, and the condition is if ein lo ma yochal, if he have nothing, no food to put on the table. But the Ritva said that for the parents, tzarich lema'et, he should reduce the commerce, reduce the type of business. But here also we said, when we conclude with the word kashya, it's not total refutation, but at that very moment they couldn't find a solution. Ritva said that nowadays we don't do this type of things, either because they other mock them, it's not the honor of the deceased, especially nowadays the act of chalitza is considering bizayon, so therefore you don't do that. Bizayon meaning level of denigration, level of mocking. Al kol ametim kulam mistaper. All the other 5 category of mourning, a person can do a haircut לאחר 30 יום, after 30 days. על אביו ועל אמו עד שיגרו בו חבריו. For the parents, he needs to wait until his friends said, what's wrong with you? You look like one of the players of the old rock band, right? You look weird. So when he reached that, then Tosfot said, in the name of Yerushalmi, he said that all of that applies only when he passed the 30 days. The Rambam said until the friends comment on that. על כל המתים כולם, excluding parents, all the other 5, נכנס לבית השמחה לאחר 30 יום. He can go to a place of celebrations when it's past 30 days. So if someone lost his sister, all right, or his other relative that is not parents, you can go after 30 days. על אביו ועל אמו לאחר 12 חודש, which means you have to wait 12 months. So the Raviyah said, and the Rosh brought it, why you said 12 chodesh, not a year? Because even in the leap year, you do not observe more than 12 months, period. That's the Raviyah. Amar Rabba בר חנא ולשמחת מרעות, which means the sometimes of a gathering of friends. They do all kind of things that it's not a real party. It's like getting together and do something nice for someone. So that's one thing, one category. Versus if you talk about wedding, you cannot enter even after 30 days. So again, mourner over father or mother cannot attend wedding even after 30 days period. Versus the other 5, at the moment the 30 days is over, you can attend. Meitivei, ul simcha velimeraut 30 yom. So we learn in different braita that you can go within the right after 30 days kashya. So now it's disputed what Rabbi בר חנא said. המאמר מתנה אחרי אמר בר חנא לשמחת מרעות מותר להיכנס לאלתר, which means we differentiate here between wedding and others. But simchat merut, just in gathering friends, that's not prohibited by sages at all. So miyad, Meiri said, meaning right after the Shiva. But there is a avenue, which is the Bach, not the majority, that said even within Shiva, if it's not a celebratory event, if it's not a wedding. ועתן לשמחה ו30 מרעות 30 לא קשיא הבאריסותא הבפורענותא. You have to differentiate between if you go to some in gathering because you just made it, or that if you need to do it because you owe it to them. In a sense, you have to show your face, as they said. But the one who mourns for father and mother, even that type, he cannot do within the 12 months. The next part is very important. על כל המתים כולם קורא הטפח על אביו ועל אמו עד שיגלה את ליבו. No, here is something that everyone should hear it in this country. What did they say here? He said, with regard to all other deceased relatives, one rent his garment in length of a handbreadth. So it's not like a little symbol. You tear the garments in a handbreadth. What is a handbreadth? What's the size of handbreadth?
Is tefach, so that's like about 4 inches approximately.
4 inches.
Yep.
Right? And that suffices. In the case of father and mother, he must rent a garment until he reveals his heart. So the implication, they said in the book of Yoel, book of Joel, chapter 2, they said, וקיראו ללבבכם ואל בגדיכם, ועל בגדיכם. So the levush in Red Ayin, Shin Mem said that that's the kriya, the turning the garment, that it's keneged alev. So since the person in that position, it's act of showing the sadness that they're no longer among the living. That you have the mitzvah of honoring parents and now it's taken from him. It's only you can express it when they are living. Amar Rabbi Abahu ma ikra. How do you know it? So when David heard that King Saul fell in the war, so they said in the book of Samuel, "Vayachazek David bivgadav vayikreem." He tore his garment. Ve'ein achiza pachot mitefach. That's the size. על כל המתים כולם, excluding parents, אפילו לבוש 10 חלוקים אינו קורע אלא העליון. Even if he wear 10 different garments, the only one he does is the top one, the top wearing garment. על אביו ועל אמו קורע את כולן. So he turned all of them. And then he said, והפי קר סוטו, and if it's a pikasdo, it's a undergarments. So either the mitpachat, or here the Rashi said שעל ראשו אינה מעכבת, אינו צריך לקוראה. So the Ravid and the Ritva and the Meiri, that's what I'm reading from my book, they said that the apikir sutor, it's the top garments. But the Aruch and the Rambam said that that's the lowest garments. So it's all depend how you treat it. Rashi said that that's the sudar, the one who covered the head. So Rashi wants to emphasize, I think, in the Klomar, that it's specifically of the apakir sut, that he doesn't need to turn even lechatchila. So again, it's a question how you interpret that word. But there are those who say that it's not me'akevet, it's kipshuto, the way it is. Echad ha'ish ve'echad isha. There is no difference between a man and woman required to rend the garments. רבי שמעון בן אלעזר אומר, האישה קורעת את התחתון ומחזירה אותו לאחוריה וחוזרת וקורעת את העליון. So he said the women, for the act of modesty, so they do it differently. They first rend her inner garments and turn it around so that the tear of her back, on her back, and only afterward does she rend her outer garment so that she does not expose her chest. על כל המתים כולם, רצה מבדיל כמי שפה שלו, רצה אינו מבדיל. All the other deceased relative, if he wishes, he may rip apart his garment on his hem, rather than merely expanding his neck hole, so that the tear stands out distinctly from the opening of his garment. If he wishes not to do it, he does not rip apart the hem of this manner. So he said, על אביו ועל אמו מבדיל. But for the parents, for father and mother, that's different, it's separated between the two. רבי יהודה אומר, על אביו ועל אמו מבדיל, כי rip apart the hem. רבי יהודה אומר, כל קריאה שאינו מבדיל כמי שפה שלו, אינו קרע של תפלות. So he said, any rending that does not rip apart his garment on the hem of the garment is nothing other than frivolous rend. So Rashi said, קרע של תפלה, כלומר לא יצא קריאה לפי דנהירה דבית צוואר הוא הכל. So simply speaking is like tafel. So here Rashi explained that according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's, if he turns as something that it's not separated, he is not fulfill his obligation. So Amar Rabbi Abba Umay Tama de Rabbi Yehuda. They said about Elisha when he came and he greeted Eliyahu. So they said in the second book of Kings, chapter 2, so ויחזק בבגדיו ויקראם לשניים קרעים, and he took hold of his own clothes and he rent them to 2 pieces. ממשמע שנאמר ויקראם, איני יודע שאין לשניים, אלא שנראים קרועים כשניים, that it's appear as they were torn into 2 pieces. So the tear must be obvious and visible. על כל המתים כולם, for all the other deceased relative, שולל, he may tuck the tear with rough stitches, לאחר 7, after the 7 days, ומאחל לאחר 30, and we join edges more carefully after 30 days. על אביו ועל אמו שולל לאחר 30 ואינו מאחל לעולם. But for the parents, for the father and mother, he may tack the tear only after 30 days, and he may never again join the edges more carefully. והאישה, and the woman, however, שוlalto, may tack the tear immediately, לאלתר מפני כבודה, due to her honor, for it will be dishonorable for her to be seen with torn garments. So see here how the rabbi is so sensitive in the honor of the woman, that she should look respectful. Now we are dealing again with the issue of separation between mourning over father or mother to others. כי את הרבים, אמר רבי יוחנן, על כל המתים, all the other deceased, excluding parents, רצה קורע ביד, רצה קורע בכלי. If you want to tear the garment, either you use your own hands or you use a little knife in order to keep the garments in some good condition. על אביו ועל אמו ביד, when it's come to parents, that the Meiri said, that show עוגמת נפש, a deep sorrow in your heart. So, however, if you can't do it with your hands, so the Meiri said, then you can use a little knife and then you continue. In other words, you take a little knife and make a little sign and then you continue with your hand. It's again show the great sorrow over parents. ואמר רבי חייא בר אבא אמר רבי יוחנן, על כל המתים כולם מבפנים, על אביו ועל אמו מבחוץ. So all the other 5, it's within his own domain. For parents, it's the appearance of everyone. אמר רב חיסדא וכן לנשיא. The same applies to the head of generation. So everyone that followed him, all the people said him to do it. מייטיבי. לא הושבו לאביו ועל אמו אלא איחוי בלבד. So we not juxtapose the teacher, the Rebbe, and the Nasi to a parents only when it's come to what? To ichui, to put it together. But he said, my love, afilu lenasi, you're going to tell me that it's only for that one who rents his garment for the Nasi. The Gemara rejected, it said, la levar minasi, aside from one who rent the garment for the Nasi. Why? Because the renting for the Nasi is the same as renting for one father's with regard to all aspect of the rendering. Well, so lo levar minasi, Nasi ashachiv. One time it happened that the Nasi passed. אמר לרב חיסדא לרב חנן בר רבא, כפי עשית וקום עליך, ואחרי קריאה לעלמא. He said, turn the mortar over and stand on it and show the rent to everyone. So you see that for the passing of the Nasi, you show that act, and everyone else feel that way and they mourn together. Al-Chacham meaning the rabbi of the community, the one who in charge for ruling the halachot. So people in the city are obligated to mourn over him. Choletz miyamin, he needs to do it from the right shoulder. Al-Af bedin mismol, the head of the rabbinic court that they depend on him, it's from the left. Al-Nasi mikan umikan, for the Nasi, which is the highest, it's above all the others, so you do in both sides. The idea of Nasi, we treated the same as father and mother, and when it's come to Ichui Kera, to put together the garments, and Chalitzat Katef and Kriami Bachutz, all these things, so that's the Rosh and others said that you treated the same as parents. But the Rambam in Chot Avelut said that you have to do it the same as parents, that you turn up to the heart for the Nasi. Shulchan Aruch Yoreh De'ah 375. In a case where one's close family member died and he did not know until he reached the place of the mourners, if he came from a nearby place, which is less than 10 parsaot away, then he joins with the other mourners, even if he arrives on the 7th day. But nowadays, a nearby place is defined as any distance that one can reach in a single day travel using modern form of transportation. That's the Aruch HaShulchan. One joins the mourners if he still finds people who came to console the principal member of the household, even if they are stood up to leave. Similarly, such a person also counts this 30-day period of mourning with the group. If he does not find consolers, meaning people there, then he observes 7 days of mourning on his own. Similarly, one who comes from a distant place counts his own 7 and 30-day period of mourning from the day on which he arrived, even if he arrives on the 2nd day of mourning. That's Shulchan Aruch Yoreh De'ah 375. We said some say it in the case where the person arrives and finds that the principal member of the household has gone to tend to the need of the dead, then the principal member returns within 3 days. It is as though he was come when the person arrived, and this person is considered to be one of the members of the household. Therefore, he counts the days of his mourning period with the group. That's the Ramah. Now, for sure, as we said, we have to ask each time a prominent posek on this, especially people, for example, they have their relatives in different country. Say the person have parents in the United States, he live in Israel, and some family members live here. He needs to travel, and he came there, and it's already after burial, and they're already sitting Shiva. So, as we said, all those cases, you need to ask a prominent posek. Another important halacha as far as they're doing business. So we said that the Yoreh De'ah in 380 said one who is mourning over a close relative may choose whether or not to limit his involvement in business activities. However, one who is mourning over his father or mother is required to lessen his involvement in these activities. As we said, we treated parents differently. Now, as far as the haircut, it's Yoreh De'ah 390. One who is mourning a deceased relative other than his parents may cut his hair after 30 days. After the death of his mother or father, he must wait to cut his hair until his colleague rebuke him. And a festival does not interrupt this aspect of mourning. There is a dispute with regard to amount of rebuke one must receive, and the accepted practice is to wait 3 months to cut the hair on one's head. However, a man may trim his beard before this. That's the Pitrei Teshuvah. In some places it is customary for a mourner not to cut his hair for 12 months. If it's not absolutely necessary to do so, then that's the Ramah on Yoreh De'ah 390. How about party? That's a common question. Soon you see the difference between the communities. So first we start with Ramah in Yoreh De'ah 391. One who is mourning for a deceased relative may go to a celebration after 30 days, but one who is mourning over his father or mother is required to wait 12 months before doing so. In the leap year, which is an additional month, the mourner is required to wait for 12 months, not a full year. If one is required to host a social gathering to repay those who have hosted him in the past, he may do so after 7 days mourning period has ended. However, one mourning for his father and mother may not host such a gathering under any circumstances for 12 months. With regards to a joyous mitzvah celebration, if there is a concern that the event will not take place at all if he will not attend, such as when the 2 orphans get married, then he may go, provided it takes place after the 30-day mourning period. A mourner may take part in a mitzvah feast that is not especially joyful, such as a meal after a circumcision, or for the redemption of the firstborn, even during the 7 days of mourning, provided it does not have to leave his house. However, the custom is for a mourner not to take part in any feast outside of his house for 12 months. If one's son is being brit milah, circumcised, or if a mourner is performing the circumcision, he may wear Shabbat clothes and join the feast, provided that it occurred after a 30 days period of mourning. Some permit the mourning his parents to join a feast within 12 months, provided that he helps prepare the wedding or serves those in attendance in some way. As far as the kriya, one who is mourning deceased relatives other than a parents is required to rend only his outer garment 1 handbreadth. If he tore his inner garment, it is acceptable b'diavad after the fact, and that's the Pitche Deshuva citing the Knesset Agdola. Although others, that's Rabbi Akiva Iger, disagree and require him to tear his outer garment. That's Rabbi Akiva cited Torat Chaim. At the death of one father or mother, he is required to tear all of his garments until he exposes his heart. It is also the accepted practice to rend one's garment on the left side over his father and mother, and the right side for the deceased relative. That's the Shach citing Maharshal. There is a dispute with regard to the term of upper kirsuto. Remember that Keloma in Rashi. Some say that it's referred to undergarment that is worn directly against the skin, and others say that it's referred to outer garment. The accepted practice is never to rend an outer cloth. However, an undergarment should be rent. The Rama writes that the Ashkenazi custom is to tear neither one's outer garment nor one's innermost garment. Instead, one is required to tear his second outmost garment over a deceased relative, over one's father or mother. He must rend all the middle garment between the outer and one closest to his body. We ask a question, how about women? Women need to do that, but the question is how you do it in the most respectful way. So the Yoredea said in 340, a woman is required to rent all of her garments by basically Rabbi Shimon ben Lazar. However, these tears should not be one directly under the another in a manner that exposes her body. If a woman cannot turn some of her garments around, then she's not required to tear them at all. So that's the Aruch HaShulchan and Shulchan Aruch Yoredea 340. Now, the question, sometimes people want to sew the tear. So after the death of man's mother or father, he may take the tear rent his garment only after 30 days. So again, the best case scenario is you separate that. But if you want to do that, you need to wait. The last halacha is in regards to the mourning over the head of generation. So he said that if a sage died, his study hall ceased its regular study, and therefore we mourn. So today, when there is no Nasi or Sanhedrin, this mourning custom is not practiced. Even we saw it in a big funeral with almost 1 million people for Rav Ovadia. And you see that some did it. But anyway, more on that is Aruch HaShulchan and Shulchan Aruch Yoredea 344.
Boyachem leshuloim malachai yeshuloim malachai